Okay. Hello. I'm back. It has obviously been a little while, but sometimes that's just kind of how life works. Also, speaking of the way life works, I have been working on quitting nicotine this week. So if I seem completely devoid of any kind of joy or happiness in my life, that is why. Wish me luck on that. But I guess speaking of being devoid of joy, our next book is Between Two Fires. Right there, Chris Buehlman. I have the dust cover off, so that's why it's not red. It usually looks like this. Pretty cool. But actually, I usually prefer my books with the dust cover off. I currently think this book is getting a lot of hype online. I've been seeing a lot of videos about it. So maybe a poor choice of a video to make if everyone else is making a video on it. But these are just my thoughts and opinion. I like that it's getting a lot of hype online. A lot of people are talking about it because I think this book is great. And I also really, really love Christopher Buehlman. He's done the Black Tongue Thief series, which also has the Daughters War in it. I think I have the Daughters War right behind me over there. But Black Tongue Thief was one of my favorite books that I've read. I've enjoyed that whole series, so check that out, especially if you like this one. I think the main thing you're going to hear about this book is probably its setting and horror elements. The setting is awesome, really dark and moody. It's set in the 1400s in France, sort of in real life, sort of not. It's real life with a kind of twist, a supernatural twist, if you will. There's lots of angels and demons and spirits and monsters in the book. And that kind of fits in nicely with the historical 1400s France plague vibe it has going on already. It helps make things even darker and moodier. And the plague itself kind of seems like it's magical based. So it's really interesting. If you're a fan of Dark Souls or Bloodborne, I think it would remind you of this. I personally haven't played Bloodborne, but same idea on the vibes, I think. I think a lot of people will just enjoy reading this because of the setting and the kind of vibe it gives off. I think people will just think it's interesting and will have fun exploring it. I personally thought that was the best part. It almost feels like its own character in the book of just how bleak and desperate and dark and gross the setting is. But speaking of the characters, they are solid. We'll have two main characters for the most part. The first one is Thomas, who is a disgraced sort of rogue feeling Spanish knight who is in France after kind of gets caught up with the wrong crowd. He's a bit of a good guy gone bad and then back to good again kind of vibe. And then you have Delphine, who's a young girl and accompanies Thomas on this journey. Don't really want to get too much into the characters because I think them evolving as characters throughout the book is kind of a major plot point. kind of the point of the book is seeing how these characters develop along their journey. So I don't really want to get into that too much. I think Christopher Buehlman's really funny. I think The Black Tongue Thief is pretty funny. And I also think this book, Between Two Fires, the book I'm currently reviewing, is also pretty funny. I think there's moments where I chuckled. Describe it as a funny book by any means. It's pretty dark and depressing, but there's a couple times where I laughed. And just letting you know, I think there is a little bit of humor in the book still. So I kind of mentioned earlier, but I think what I enjoyed most about this book is just getting to explore its setting. There's something weird about this setting. Something weird to the earth has happened itself. Like the earth has been defiled. It's this gross, uncomfortable, dark, depressing setting the whole time. It kind of feels post-apocalyptic, but you're more in the middle of the apocalypse. I guess apocalyptic is the word I'm going for. But kind of the characters interacting with this horrible tragedy that's going on. Not just the plague, but all these monsters and death around them and how people are acting in this basically apocalyptic setting, I think makes it really interesting. I just enjoyed whether there's something going on in the plot or not at the time. I just enjoyed reading more and getting to know more about this dark, depressing world our characters are living in. But you'll see online a lot of people are calling this a horror book. I believe it does say that on the cover. Yes, it calls it an epic tale of medieval horror. I get the idea of that for sure. It's totally got horror elements, and there's big, gross, scary monsters and lots of death and darkness. But it's nothing that's gonna stick with you at night too bad. That's gonna freak you out. I mean, there's definitely some disturbing scenes. I just want people to know I'm not a big horror guy at all, and I don't want that to turn this. I don't want the fact that it is a horror book to turn them off this book. I don't think it's that scary. Yeah, it's got some dark scenes for sure, but I don't think it's anything to dissuade you from reading the book. So the book, plot-wise, is pretty basic. I don't think it's anything crazy to write home about. It's basically our good guys, our main characters, kind of need to journey from one side of the map to the other, and there'll be some obstacles in their way that you will figure out by reading it yourself. But it's kind of just a vehicle to help you explore this world. Like I said, is the best part. There's no huge twists and turns. I think there is one twist towards the end that you'll figure it out on your own. But it's a pretty basic plot, and I don't mean that in a bad thing because I think it does its job. I don't think it needs to be a medieval horror story with a crazy, deep, interesting 700-page plot. I think a basic 400-page journey does a great job of taking you around this world and kind of viewing this experiment of this fantastical horror with modern day, well, not modern day, but medieval day knights. So I don't think you need a big crazy plot, and I certainly don't think this is a big crazy plot, but it's not bad. It's definitely enjoyable. I enjoyed the plot. It's just not super complex, which is totally fine. I think there is one part in the middle where I kind of mentioned on a journey and going through obstacles and monsters and all that. It does feel a little repetitive, and I kind of described it as episodic, where you kind of, it seems like a big monster's in the way, clear out big monsters or whatever it is in the way, rinse and repeat. And that happens a few times, kind of in the middle. It's not awful. I think it's just a little repetitive and slows the pacing down a little. And then you get past that and we're all good. That is probably the one negative thing I have to say about this book is the middle feels like you've done the same thing a few times in a row now, and we're kind of ready to move on from that. And eventually you do, and you get past it, and it's all good. I would give this book a solid 8.5 out of 10 Bloodborns. I thought this was a great book. I think my favorite thing about this book, I've mentioned the setting about 8 million times, but I think it's a very unique book with its own distinct feel. I think it stands out on its own. I think about it often afterwards about how much I enjoyed it, despite it being this dark, depressing thing. I think it's kind of a fun, enjoyable book to just live in and experience this crazy world of reality mixed with supernatural horror. I thought it was a really well done book. If you like anything like Dark Souls, history, religion, spooky stuff, maybe all those things, maybe just some of those things, maybe a big mix of those things, I definitely think you're going to enjoy this book. If you have read this book, let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you thought about it. If you liked it, didn't like it, why? And otherwise, thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video.